Once you step across the threshold into the dark night of the soul, you find yourself immersed in a labyrinth unlike any physical maze you have ever known. This is not a place with walls, corridors, or doors that can be navigated with a map or a compass. Instead, it is a living, shifting landscape of consciousness, a terrain shaped by the interplay of your memories, fears, desires, and unspoken longings. Time here behaves differently. It stretches and contracts, folding moments of despair and revelation into one another, as though seconds and years exist simultaneously. What seems like an hour can feel like an eternity, and an insight can arrive in the blink of an eye, yet leave its imprint for a lifetime. The labyrinth is populated by the echoes of your past, subtle whispers of regrets you thought you had forgotten, unfulfilled ambitions that cling to your soul like shadows, and patterns of behavior that no longer serve you. It is in this place that you begin to perceive the illusions that govern most of life, those habits, beliefs, and societal expectations that have quietly shaped your identity from childhood onward. Each memory, each attachment, each self-image presents itself not as a neutral reflection, but as a challenge, a test of your willingness to see beyond surface appearances and confront the raw, unfiltered truth of your inner being. As you journey, the boundaries between self and world blur. The ego, which has long defined the contours of your perception, begins to dissolve, revealing the subtle mechanisms by which reality itself is filtered through thought and expectation. You notice how deeply your mind clings to certainty, how it resists ambiguity, and how it creates narratives to explain experiences that cannot otherwise be understood. These narratives, though comforting, have concealed a more profound reality, one that is not linear, predictable, or confined to the limits of ordinary perception. In this labyrinth, you learn that suffering is not simply external. It is often a reflection of the internal dissonance between who you believe yourself to be and who you truly are. Here, the shadows are not merely obstacles, they are guides. Each confrontation with fear, doubt, or unresolved emotion becomes an opportunity to witness the mechanisms of the self in action. You start to perceive the way desire, aversion, and attachment subtly shape your attention, your choices, and even your sense of purpose. With patience and discernment, the labyrinth transforms from a prison into a teacher, revealing patterns and truths that cannot be discovered in light, comfort, or distraction. Every twist and turn is imbued with meaning, a whisper from the universe urging you to move deeper, to embrace what is hidden rather than reject it. As your awareness expands, you begin to sense the layers within yourself, like concentric circles radiating from the core of being. There is the surface self, the persona shaped by upbringing, culture, and social expectation, which clings desperately to approval and familiarity. Beneath this lies a more vulnerable layer of unresolved pain, doubt, and longing, often disguised as anxiety, restlessness, or dissatisfaction. And even deeper still, you encounter the essence of consciousness itself, the unchanging observer, the silent presence that has witnessed all your life's dramas without judgment or preference. It is this observer, often obscured by noise and habit, that ultimately holds the key to navigating the labyrinth. The labyrinth challenges your assumptions at every turn. You discover that what you perceive as obstacles may, in truth, be invitations. The moments that feel like dead ends often conceal thresholds into new dimensions of understanding. You encounter paradoxes that defy logical comprehension. Suffering can be a source of awakening, loss can lead to profound gain, emptiness can hold infinite potential. These paradoxes are not errors of thought. They are revelations of a reality that transcends the linear structures your mind has relied upon. In learning to hold them without rushing to resolve them, you develop a capacity for insight that is both subtle and transformative. Moreover, the labyrinth is not solely inward-looking. It reflects the cosmos itself, the interconnected web of consciousness, energy, and existence. As you engage with your own shadow, you begin to sense the echo of these patterns in the lives of others and in the subtle rhythms of the world. The labyrinth becomes a microcosm of reality, a place where every fear, desire, and insight resonates far beyond the personal, hinting at the universal forces that shape life. You learn to see that your journey is not isolated. It is part of an intricate symphony, a continuous interplay between inner exploration and outer manifestation. Traversing this inner maze requires patience, courage, and curiosity. There are no shortcuts, no maps, and no guarantees. At times, the weight of introspection can feel unbearable, the darkness impenetrable, and the uncertainty overwhelming. Yet it is precisely in those moments of resistance that the deepest transformation occurs. You come to understand that clarity is not the absence of confusion, but the ability to navigate it. The Labyrinth teaches endurance and presence, showing that even amid chaos, the observer within remains steady, capable of witnessing without being swept away. By moving deliberately through this shadowed terrain, you gain insight into the mechanics of your own consciousness, and ultimately, into the hidden patterns that govern reality itself. The Labyrinth is not a punishment or a trial imposed from outside. It is an invitation to participate consciously in the creation of your life, to recognize the subtle energies and unseen currents that shape thought, emotion, and action. It is in this expanded awareness, tempered by the embrace of shadow and uncertainty, that the dark night begins to reveal its purpose, not to destroy, but to illuminate, not to isolate, but to awaken, and not to frighten, but to guide you into a profound understanding of who you truly are. As you venture further into the labyrinth of your consciousness, you encounter a space that defies expectation, a space that feels simultaneously boundless and empty, profound yet unsettling. This is the paradox of emptiness, a threshold where the familiar frameworks of meaning, identity, and purpose dissolve, leaving only the raw essence of awareness. At first, this emptiness is frightening. It seems like an absence, a void, a chasm where certainty once resided. Your mind instinctively seeks to fill it with thought, story, or judgment, but here conventional strategies fail. The usual anchors, plans, ambitions, relationships, and external validation appear fragile, transient, and incapable of sustaining the weight of the inner experience. Yet within this apparent void lies an extraordinary invitation. The emptiness is not annihilation, it is a fertile ground, a space pregnant with potential that cannot be discovered through ordinary perception. In the silence, the mind begins to perceive the subtle currents of life and consciousness that operate beneath the surface of reality. Patterns previously hidden in noise and distraction become visible. Shadows of fear and longing, instead of being threats, reveal themselves as guides pointing to where the soul has been constricted or denied. The paradox emerges. The deeper the sense of loss, the more capacity there is to uncover the truths that have been waiting beyond the veil. In this threshold, the familiar measures of success, comfort, and achievement lose their significance. Emptiness exposes the layers of illusion that have shaped identity, the assumptions about who you must be, the roles you feel compelled to perform, the desires you chase because they are expected rather than authentic. Confronting this emptiness requires courage that surpasses ordinary bravery. It demands the willingness to face uncertainty, to relinquish control, and to endure the discomfort of not knowing. Paradoxically, it is precisely through this surrender that the potential for true insight arises. By resisting the urge to fill the void, the observer within begins to perceive subtle dimensions of consciousness that had previously been inaccessible. As the experience deepens, you notice the shifting nature of perception itself. Thoughts, emotions, and memories no longer dominate your awareness. They become phenomena observed rather than forces controlling your experience. In this space, time loses its rigidity. Moments of despair and insight coexist, layered like a tapestry in which past, present, and future interweave. You come to see that the self you believe to be permanent, the collection of habits, beliefs, and roles, is a construct, a temporary lens through which consciousness experiences reality. The paradox of emptiness teaches that what feels like a loss of self is in fact the opening to a more expansive and authentic experience of being. The mind initially resists this truth. It insists on definition, certainty, and structure. It rebels against ambiguity and seeks to impose meaning where there may be none. Here, the paradox of emptiness becomes most acute. The very tools you rely on to understand life, the intellect, analysis, and logic, are insufficient to navigate this dimension of consciousness. Insight emerges not through thinking, but through witnessing. The observer, freed from attachment to outcome, begins to recognize that the absence you fear is simultaneously the source of all potential. What appears as nothingness is in fact a mirror reflecting infinite possibility, a doorway to creativity, wisdom, and transformative understanding that cannot be achieved through conventional methods. In this crucible, suffering transforms from a burden into an instrument of revelation. Each sensation of despair, loneliness, or disorientation contains coded messages about the structure of the self and the hidden dynamics of consciousness. When approached with curiosity rather than resistance, these messages illuminate patterns of thought, habit, and energy that have kept the soul fragmented. The paradox becomes evident. What seems like emptiness is actually a profound fullness, a reservoir of latent energy, insight, and power that can only be accessed by letting go of the familiar. The paradox of emptiness also touches the interconnection between self and the world. As internal structures dissolve, you begin to perceive the subtler vibrations of existence, the invisible threads connecting all living beings, what the energy currents that animate nature, and the hidden architecture underlying reality. The experience fosters an awareness that transcends individual suffering, revealing a shared rhythm in which personal transformation resonates far beyond the confines of the individual mind. The emptiness becomes a gateway to understanding life as an interconnected web, where consciousness itself is the medium through which the universe expresses, learns, and evolves. At the heart of this paradox lies the ultimate lesson. The self is not diminished by emptiness, it is liberated. By embracing uncertainty, observing without judgment, and relinquishing attachment to familiar identities, you cultivate a form of insight that is profound, unshakable, and deeply liberating. The paradox of emptiness is not an obstacle to be conquered, it is a revelation to be experienced, a sacred tension that shapes the soul's evolution. Within the void, you discover that loss can be gain, absence can be presence, and the dissolution of control is the very path to authentic empowerment. Ultimately, this phase of the journey teaches that transformation does not occur through accumulation, avoidance, or striving. It occurs through surrender, integration, and the willingness to be fully present with what is, even when what is appears to be nothing at all. Emptiness, when understood and embraced, becomes the foundation for reclaiming your inner light, illuminating the path forward through shadows, and awakening capacities of perception, intuition, and wisdom that lie dormant until confronted with the profound paradoxes of the soul. There comes a moment in the dark night of the soul when everything you have believed about yourself and the world feels as if it is unraveling. The structures of identity, the narratives you have clung to, and the familiar markers of stability, the roles, relationships, and accomplishments that once defined your reality, seem to dissolve into shadow. In this profound uncertainty, the human mind instinctively searches for light, for some source of guidance or reassurance. Yet here, in the apparent emptiness, you begin to realize a truth so subtle and powerful that it reshapes perception itself. The light you have been seeking outside, in external achievements, people, or circumstances, has always resided within. This inner light is not a metaphor or a fleeting sensation. It is the fundamental radiance of consciousness, the luminous essence of the soul that remains undiminished regardless of circumstance. It has never been lost, though it may have been obscured by layers of fear, conditioning, and distraction. The dark night, with all its uncertainty, pain, and confrontation with shadow, serves as a crucible. It does not extinguish light, it purifies, awakens, and intensifies it. Every moment of despair, every confrontation with the ego's illusions, every encounter with emptiness is an invitation to perceive this light more clearly, to awaken to a presence that has been waiting patiently all along. Reclaiming this inner illumination requires radical honesty. You are asked to look unflinchingly at your shadow, the parts of yourself that you have denied, rejected, or hidden. These may appear as fear, shame, anger, grief, or longing. At first, facing them feels unbearable. The instinct is to push away, to numb, or to distract yourself. Yet the paradox is profound. The very shadows you fear are the pathways to awakening. By integrating these hidden aspects with courage and compassion, by acknowledging their existence without judgment, you begin to reclaim a wholeness that was never truly lost. The light and shadow are not separate. They are complementary currents of consciousness, each defining and amplifying the other. As awareness deepens, the nature of suffering itself transforms. You realize that despair is not a punishment but a mirror, reflecting the places where your soul has been compressed, neglected, or misaligned. Loneliness is not absence, but an invitation to encounter the depths of your own presence. Uncertainty is not chaos, but a medium through which clarity can emerge. In embracing the totality of experience, without seeking to control, escape, or rationalize it, you cultivate an inner vision that perceives patterns, connections, and energies invisible to the ordinary mind. The dark night ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a teacher, revealing the architecture of consciousness and the hidden mechanisms through which transformation occurs. This realization expands beyond the personal. As you reclaim your inner light, you begin to perceive subtle currents of energy and intention in the world around you. Life itself responds, not in the externalized way promised by superficial manifesting techniques, but in a deeper, more profound alignment. Your actions, thoughts, and emotional states carry resonance far beyond their apparent scale. The inner light you cultivate becomes a gravitational force, shaping perception, influencing events, and creating ripples of coherence in the surrounding reality. You start to understand that the universe is not an external, impersonal machine, but a responsive living matrix in which consciousness is both observer and creator. At this stage, insight shifts from concept to experience. It is no longer enough to intellectually understand that the light is within. You feel it, sense it, and allow it to permeate the body, mind, and soul. It is a quiet, unshakable presence, a steady flame that illuminates shadow without effort, clarifies confusion without force, and radiates warmth and clarity without seeking recognition. This light does not demand proof or validation. It is self-existent, eternal, and inexhaustible. The ultimate metaphysical truth emerges with clarity. Suffering, despair, emptiness, and fear are not obstacles to awakening. They are conduits. They are the scaffolding upon which the soul's light is reconstructed and intensified. The journey through darkness is necessary precisely because the light cannot be fully appreciated or accessed without contrast. Without confronting the void, the radiant essence of being would remain obscured, dormant, and unnoticed. The dark night is the vehicle through which the soul regains sovereignty over its own energy, attention, and perception. Reclaiming this inner light transforms life itself. Ordinary experiences, once mundane, begin to radiate subtle significance. Decisions are guided less by fear, ego, or external expectation, and more by the resonant clarity of presence. Relationships, work, and creative endeavors are no longer transactions of need or obligation. They become expressions of alignment with the hidden currents of consciousness. Even challenges are met with an understanding that they are opportunities for deepening perception, cultivating patience, and refining the luminous core of the self. Ultimately, this light reveals a principle that transcends personal narrative. Existence is not a neutral stage upon which life happens, nor is it a series of random events to be endured. It is a conscious, responsive matrix in which presence, attention, and alignment shape experience itself. Your soul, having walked through shadow and emerged into illumination, becomes a beacon, not in the sense of performance, recognition, or achievement, but as a living testimony of the possibility of awakening. The inner sun you reclaim burns quietly, persistently, and infinitely. It is the pulse of consciousness, the anchor of being, and the eternal witness to the interplay of darkness and light that constitutes life itself. This is the core insight of the dark night. Light is not external, and awakening is not something to be earned. The radiance of your soul exists now, in this moment, waiting for acknowledgement, integration, and expression. Through surrender to truth, integration of shadow, and recognition of the eternal presence within, you move beyond suffering, confusion, and limitation. You step into the luminous reality that has always existed beneath the surface, and in doing so, you become both the witness and the source of transformation, for yourself and for the world around you. At this point in your journey through the dark night of the soul, it is essential to recognize a truth that is often overlooked. While your path is intensely personal, it is not solitary. The shadowed corridors you traverse, the moments of despair, doubt, and uncertainty, are not unique failings or signs of weakness. They are reflections of a universal rhythm, an experience shared by countless others who have walked, are walking, or will walk similar paths. The isolation you feel is not evidence of separation, but rather a necessary stage in which the soul is called to encounter itself fully. Yet even in solitude, you are not alone. There is a collective pulse, an invisible thread connecting all those who have faced their inner voids and emerged into light. As you confront your own shadows, you may notice that the experiences of others resonate in subtle, profound ways. Perhaps you have watched someone else's despair from a distance and felt an uncanny recognition, a sense that their struggle mirrors your own inner turbulence. Perhaps in moments of quiet reflection, the pain, fear, and longing of others reach you across time and space, drawing forth empathy and understanding. This is not coincidence, it is evidence of the shared fabric of consciousness. Every human being carries echoes of fear, joy, doubt, and hope. And by acknowledging your own experiences authentically, you attune to the shared experience of life itself. In these depths, the ordinary judgments that have shaped your life about success, failure, appearance, and worth begin to lose their authority. You start to understand that suffering is not a personal flaw, but a universal aspect of existence, a language through which the soul communicates, a mirror reflecting what remains hidden, unintegrated, or denied. In recognizing this, a profound sense of empathy emerges. You begin to see the invisible burdens carried by others, the quiet struggles behind smiling faces, and the unspoken longings that drive behavior. This recognition is not sentimental, it is a direct perception of interconnected consciousness, a shared human rhythm that links the personal and the cosmic. It is in this recognition that emotional intimacy arises, not the intimacy of proximity, but the intimacy of understanding, of shared truth. The viewer, listening and reflecting, is invited to see themselves fully, not as a collection of roles, achievements, or failures, but as a living, evolving consciousness navigating an eternal process of becoming. The inner light you have begun to reclaim through shadow and emptiness is mirrored in others, and in that reflection, you feel a subtle validation. Your experience is neither trivial nor accidental. It is part of a larger, purposeful unfolding. This connection extends beyond empathy into responsibility, not in the sense of obligation or burden, but as the recognition that your presence, awareness, and choices influence the collective field of consciousness. By reclaiming your inner light, you illuminate not only your own path, but also offer resonance and clarity to those still navigating their own darkness. Your journey becomes simultaneously personal and universal. The shadow you confront and integrate becomes a bridge, a way for others to feel seen, understood, and inspired to explore their own inner realms. In these moments, the ordinary boundaries between self and other begin to dissolve. Pain and joy, loss and awakening, fear and courage, all begin to appear as part of a continuous spectrum of experience shared by the human family. The realization is subtle but transformative. The trials, confusion, and despair that once felt isolating are in fact invitations to engage with a deeper layer of reality where compassion, empathy, and recognition are not learned skills but natural responses to the perception of shared consciousness. And so, the personal becomes profoundly mystical. As the viewer reflects on their own journey, they are asked to consider, what aspects of yourself have you denied? What shadows have you hidden from the world and even from yourself? Which parts of your inner being are waiting to be seen, acknowledged, and integrated? By seeing these truths, you participate in a process that is at once deeply intimate and cosmically significant. The recognition of your own depth, the embracing of your personal shadows, and the reclamation of your inner light is not just an individual awakening, it is a contribution to the awakening of consciousness itself. The dark night of the soul, which at first seemed isolating and unbearable, now reveals its purpose. It is a mirror, showing both the universality of human struggle and the luminous potential within each individual. It teaches that to feel deeply, to confront fear and despair, and to embrace your own humanity fully, is to participate in a sacred exchange. Your presence illuminates the path for others, and in turn, their existence reinforces the truth of your own awakening. The journey through darkness becomes a shared ritual, a communion between self, shadow, and the collective pulse of life. In this way, the personal connection is not a fleeting comfort, but a profound recognition. You are seen, you are understood, and your experience is meaningful. The inner light you reclaim through struggle, reflection, and awareness does not shine solely for yourself. It radiates outward, touching the hidden lives, unspoken fears, and latent potential of others. Through this connection, the labyrinth of consciousness ceases to be isolating and instead becomes a living, breathing landscape of resonance, reflection, and shared awakening. Now that you have journeyed through shadow, faced emptiness, and glimpsed the hidden light within, the moment arrives for action, not external, dramatic, or performative action, but an inward, deliberate engagement with the sacred architecture of your own consciousness. The call to awakening is subtle, almost imperceptible at first, yet its impact is profound. It does not require heroism in the conventional sense. It asks only for presence, curiosity, and courage. The courage to look into your own being without distraction, to encounter the totality of who you are, and to allow the inner light you have reclaimed to guide your choices. To answer this call, begin by observing your inner world as if it were an unfolding landscape. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, and memories are no longer mere events to react to. They are messengers, signals of hidden currents within consciousness. Fear may surface, as it always does, but it is no longer a tyrant. It becomes a teacher, pointing toward areas where your attention is fractured, where old patterns persist, and where the soul seeks integration. By leaning into these signals with awareness rather than aversion, you transform ordinary experience into a laboratory of awakening. Each observation, each moment of stillness, becomes an act of inner alchemy. The essence of this practice is subtle, yet profound. Begin with presence, attending to breath, heartbeat, and bodily sensations as gateways to consciousness. In each inhale and exhale, there is opportunity to reconnect with the eternal observer within, the silent witness that has watched all your journeys without judgment. Awareness of the body anchors the mind, allowing subtle energies and hidden insights to rise into clarity. In doing so, you cultivate alignment between the inner and outer realms, harmonizing thought, emotion, and perception with the deeper currents of life. Surrender is central to this awakening, not surrender to weakness or passivity, but surrender to truth. Release the insistence on control, certainty, or predefined outcomes. Recognize that the dark night, the labyrinth, and the paradox of emptiness are not obstacles to escape, but invitations to co-create with consciousness itself. In this surrender, the inner light expands. It illuminates shadowed corners of the mind, integrates fragmented aspects of self, and reveals the subtle energies that animate both perception and manifestation. The practice of surrender does not diminish agency. It refines it, aligning intention with the natural currents of reality rather than struggling against them. Engaging the call to awakening also involves discernment in attention. Your mind is continuously bombarded with distractions, compulsions, and superficial stimuli. Awakening requires noticing where attention is scattered, where it is reactive, and where it is drawn toward illusion rather than truth. By observing these tendencies without condemnation, you reclaim authority over consciousness itself. The mind becomes a tool of illumination, not a captive of confusion. This mastery does not happen instantly. It is the product of consistent practice, subtle observation, and patient presence. Integration of shadow is equally vital. The aspects of self you have hidden, denied, or resisted are not to be eradicated, but to be acknowledged and embraced. These shadowed elements, once fully recognized, contribute to a wholeness that radiates internally and externally. The light you have reclaimed is strengthened by its relationship to shadow, for one cannot shine without contrast, one cannot fully perceive without knowing what has been obscured. This is the essence of alchemy. Darkness and light, despair and insight, emptiness and fullness, all converging into the luminous wholeness of being. Finally, the call to awakening extends beyond personal transformation into a subtle participation in the broader field of consciousness. By cultivating presence, awareness, and integration, you influence not only your own inner world, but the world around you. Relationships, decisions, and creative expression resonate differently when they emerge from the center of your reclaimed light. Actions are guided by clarity rather than compulsion, insight rather than fear. Your awakened presence becomes a silent force, shaping the field of energy and consciousness in ways that ripple beyond perception. Answering this call is not a singular event, but a continuous practice, a living dialogue with existence itself. It is not defined by milestones, accolades, or external recognition, but by the quality of presence, the depth of insight, and the integrity of alignment with the eternal observer within. The dark night is no longer something to endure. It is a sacred path, a gateway, a laboratory for awakening. Each breath, each moment of awareness, each subtle integration of shadow into light is a step along this path, a tangible engagement with the forces that shape both consciousness and reality. Ultimately, the call to awakening is an invitation to become both witness and participant, observer and creator, shadow and light. It asks for courage, patience, and devotion, not to an external ideal but to the unfolding truth of your own being. In embracing this invitation, you do not merely survive the dark night of the soul, you transform it, reclaiming your inner light, activating latent potential, and stepping into a luminous reality in which consciousness itself becomes a vehicle of clarity, influence, and profound awakening. As the journey through the dark night of the soul reaches its culmination, you realize that what once felt like an ending is, in truth, only a continuation of an eternal cycle. The labyrinth, the paradoxes, the shadowed corridors you have traversed, they are not linear trials with a final conclusion. They are a mirror of existence itself, a reflection of consciousness moving in cycles of contraction and expansion, shadow and illumination, loss and awakening. In this recognition, the mind may search for words or explanations, but they are insufficient. The truth you encounter here is felt, lived, and integrated, rather than fully articulated. The inner light you have reclaimed does not blaze like fire in an outward spectacle. It is quieter, steadier, and infinitely more profound. A persistent radiance that permeates your awareness, your perception, and even the subtleties of your energy. It illuminates the hidden patterns of your mind, the delicate currents of your emotions, and the invisible architecture of life itself. Shadows remain, but they are no longer threats. They are companions, reflections that define and accentuate the brilliance of the light. Through this interplay, you perceive that darkness and illumination are not opposites, but complementary forces, each giving depth and meaning to the other. In the silence that follows, a subtle understanding emerges. Existence itself is not a static backdrop against which life unfolds, but a living, responsive matrix in which consciousness participates, observes, and co-creates. The choices you make, the attention you cultivate, and the presence you embody ripple far beyond the immediate experience. Your reclaimed inner light is both sanctuary and signal, a guide for your own path and a quiet influence on the world around you. This is the hidden miracle of awakening. What begins as a personal journey inevitably becomes an expression of universal resonance. And yet, even as insight unfolds, there is mystery that remains, an unspoken truth that cannot be captured fully by intellect or language. It is a truth you sense rather than define, a knowing that the journey continues even when awareness rests. The dark night is neither an enemy nor a trial imposed upon you. It is the natural rhythm of consciousness, the crucible through which the soul awakens to its inherent luminosity. Each cycle of shadow and light, despair and insight, contraction and expansion, is an invitation to remember that the essence of being is eternal, indestructible, and radiant beyond measure. As you carry this understanding back into daily life, you notice the ordinary transformed. Moments of stillness, encounters with others, challenges, and triumphs all shimmer with a subtle significance. The world is not fundamentally different, but your perception is. You see the patterns beneath the surface, the hidden currents of energy and intention, and the interconnectedness that binds all life. This awareness does not demand action or proof. It simply exists as a quiet illumination, guiding, shaping, and aligning with the eternal pulse of reality. The journey thus closes, but only superficially. In truth, it is a beginning, a continuous unfolding of presence, consciousness, and understanding. The inner sun you have discovered burns silently but persistently, a constant companion through shadow and light. Its radiance is not contingent on circumstance or validation. It exists as the core of your being, the witness to your own evolution, and the subtle force that touches the world without effort or recognition. And in this moment of reflection, you are left with a profound, ineffable truth. The dark night of the soul is not an absence of light, but a crucible for awakening. The inner light you have reclaimed is not fleeting, not conditional, and not external. It is the essence of who you are, eternal, luminous, and unshakable. To walk forward is to carry this illumination into every thought, every feeling, and every act, allowing it to ripple outward in ways both subtle and profound. It is to live fully awake, fully present, and fully aligned with the hidden currents of existence, knowing that the journey through shadow is in fact the path into infinite light. In the end, the dark night was never the enemy, it was the teacher. The labyrinth was never a trap, it was the guide. And the inner light was never lost. It was waiting, always, silently and infinitely, for the courage, presence, and awareness to recognize it.